Thank you so much, Rick, for the great introduction. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Alex Lee. I'm the State Assembly member for the 25th Assembly District, which is Southern Alameda County and Northern Santa Clara County. And I just want to first thank everyone for their very strong support on AB 854 for our Ellis Act reform bill, which is a very badly needed bill to prevent speculative evictions. Right now, of course, we're facing unprecedented housing crisis and homelessness crisis. And this bill, as I tell a lot of folks, is an active measure of defense against displacement. This bill is very badly needed, especially as homelessness gets worse and housing prices become affordable. Rent control buildings are one of the most valuable sources of affordable housing for low-income seniors and vulnerable folks we have. And if they get flipped onto the for-profit market, those units disappear from low-income families. So I just wanted to quickly go over this bill today with you all and really ask for support. I'll talk a bit more about the bill, but the really important thing is we're hoping to take this bill up next week on the full assembly floor. And the big real estate interests have called in all their backup right now on our doubly lobbying against us. Right now, we have had no Democrat vote against this bill, luckily, but they're calling in a lot of big favors and lobbyists right now. So we definitely want to have your support and making those phone calls to your members, especially if your member has not voted on Assembly Bill 854 yet. So if possible, let's go to the next slide. Thank you. So just very quickly to tell you about the history of the Ellis Act. The Ellis Act was a very narrowly crafted bill to allow landlords to exit the rental business. So say you're a landlord who's been in the rental business for decades and decades, and you've just come to that time where you no longer want to tend to rental properties, you no longer work on this. So the Ellis Act created a no-fault eviction, in which case folks could leave the rental business. So, if you wanted to hang up the rental business after 50 years, you could do that. This bill, our bill, still respects the rights of long-term landlords because we're going to be able to, well, and I'll talk about it a little bit, because we still have a 5-year ownership minimum. And most long-term landlords, as you can imagine, did not get into the game into 2018 when the market was incredibly high. And why this is being abused especially is because, as I said, it's a no-fault eviction. So, and an Ellis Act eviction is different than, say, any sort of typical eviction that you see. An Ellis Act eviction occurs on the entire building, not one unit at a time. So when someone wants to credibly leave the rental business, that they are saying, right, they don't want to tend to the whole building anymore. They're not saying, I'm going to use an Ellis Act on unit 1 and unit 3. And that's what makes it quite different. And this loophole, though, has led to many property speculators using this loophole. So once they acquire properties, and if we go to the next slide, please. Once they acquire properties relatively quickly, they use the Ellis Act to mass evict everyone in the building, and in hopes of selling off these formerly rent-controlled units into individual units of apartments or condos, what have you. Studies show that 78% of evictions, of Ellis Act evictions in recent years, have occurred within the first 5 years of ownership. So that's once they transfer ownership, people use the Ellis Act to get rid of everyone inside it and then, make do with the units. And that's a big loophole. That's led to the loss of 30,000 rent-controlled units in Los Angeles and almost 60,000 units in San Francisco, or sorry, 6,000 units in San Francisco. But that's resulted, of course, in thousands of families. There are families currently fighting Ellis Act evictions and fighting other unjust evictions. Now, I want to remind folks that a couple years ago, we passed AB 1482, which created just cause evictions and what is a just cause eviction. And owner move-in and demolition or renovation are still one of those just causes. But Ellis Act is preferable because if you can't find one unit at a time, you don't have to evict one unit at a time. You can evict the whole building. And that's why this is quite alarming of a practice to be abused by. And there is some misinformation out there being spread out. This bill is saying this would prevent an owner move-in, and that's not the case. I mean, unless you're trying to move in to all the units in the building at one time, which I don't think is quite realistic, you can still, under current law, move into a unit if you're the owner or family member of the units. So this is why it's really important. This bill, AB 854, simply says a property owner must own a property for 5 years before they quote unquote leave the rental business, which is using the ELS Act. Now, we don't want large scale corporations or property speculators abusing this law to quote unquote leave the rental business. We actually have even examples in San Francisco of what we call serial evictors, people who consistently use the ELS Act over time, because they go from one building to the next and they evict everyone, and then they obviously turn a profit on every building. And this is a huge problem, especially when we're facing a shortage of affordable units and, of course, the growing housing crisis. So we've also put in a amendment in the bill right now, so folks ask about it, that it only now applies to rent control jurisdictions. Now, that's only 21 cities out of over almost 500 cities in the entire state of California, but now we've at least targeting the most vulnerable, the most in need. And this is something I always stress to people, is it's a live defense against displacement. If we pass this bill this year, that will mean actively less people getting evicted, less people falling onto the streets, and less units, affordable housing units that we badly need, being taken off the market. So that's really important to be able to protect folks as much as possible. Now, it's an amendment that I did not initially want to take. It's not my dream to take it, but it's out of the compromise. And I do think it's fair to focus on the most impacted folks, of course, this year, because as we know, displacement has really a strong ripple effect. And every year we delay, and every year we let people fall into destitution or onto the streets is a long-term impact. And then I'll just end on the last slide real quick. This is a glance of the giant coalition we're assembling, where a lot of folks who don't always usually work together, but are working together on this bill, just to show you the wide breadth of agreement we have on this. We have Housing Justice Organization, the Democratic Party, cities and counties, homelessness organizations, and labor unions all on the same page on this. So that's where we are on this bill. Really hope to have your support and keep making those calls, making your voice heard, because this process right now is going to come down to the wire. We're up against a lot of big money and a lot of interests right now who want to be able to monetize and commoditize rent-controlled units, and really want to ask for your help as much as possible. So thank you so much for having me this morning. I know I got to jet really soon, but thank you so much for having me on this morning.
Thank you, Assemblymember Lee. I'm just gonna, on the screen share, I'm just gonna also show to capitalize on what Assemblymember just said. In the committee analysis that was done, they registered the supporters and the opposition. And if you just glance across the breadth of the support for this bill, it's huge. And the opposition is, I'll say minimal, but it's all the apartment association and rental housing association. So, Livable California is happy to be, among this strong, diverse group advocating for this bill. So, we're later, after Assemblymember is gone, we'll talk about exactly how you can help us support this bill and help the Assemblymember get it passed this year. Anything else, Assemblymember Lee?
No, I just want to thank you all for your advocacy on this bill. I really appreciate all the help you've been on this bill. And I'm afraid that I saw that we were having a presentation. I wanted to come in personally and thank you all. So thank you again. Keep it up. And please, let's get this bill passed so we can protect more vulnerable renters in California. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us today, Assemblymember.